This is the LiPetri Show. What's going on, everybody? We have here a special guest, Tommy Shevlin, Nassau PBA President. Welcome to the show, Tommy. Thanks so much for being on here, buddy.
Thank you so much for having me, Mike. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here.
I appreciate that immensely. That means a lot because I didn't have to pay you to say it, so that's actually something that's worthwhile. But I got to say, somebody that is a cop's cop, as you're known. There's a great article about you. danspapers.com just has it where it breaks down who you are as a man that has truly been a second-generation law enforcement officer, somebody that has been a police officer since the day since he was a kid, somebody that really cares about advocating on behalf of officers, and someone that has seen it. I mean, for years. You started back in 1998?
Yes, sir.
Was that 98 leading up?
Long time ago.
Long time ago. And then look at you where you started as an officer, NYPD, and then you led the way for years there, and then you transferred over to Nassau to be then, over the years, becoming president of the Nassau PBA, which is a formidable, strong union for law enforcement officers in Nassau County. I mean, how many members do you represent?
We have close to 1,900 active, 4,000 retirees, and then we also have a couple hundred associate members.
Oh, it's a lot of people, man. A lot of people that want to make sure you're there being their representative.
Absolutely. It's a lot of people that you have to make happy every day.
Yeah. Yeah, let me ask. So how do you go from being an officer to then becoming the PBA president? What made you want to become president?
So just like when I was a kid, I knew I always wanted to be a police officer, right? When you become a police officer, you want to help people. And that's what you do every day. You risk your life every day to make the world a better place, to do what you can to help somebody. And along the way, I gained a new passion. And my passion became, we're there for the residents, the community. Who's there for us? Who's there for the first responders who are risking their lives every day? And it took on a whole new life where I wanted to represent police officers, their rights, and take care of them and their families so they can be safe and happy and live a very long life in retirement.
Yeah, I think that's marvelous. That's what you want, right? From somebody who's going to be leading as the president, you want to make sure they have that passion, not only for the job, but for the membership, to making sure that they're advocating the right way, that they're standing firm by their officers and defending their officers in times of assault and attack from whomever it may be. And I applaud you, man. That is laudable indeed. Now, leading up the way from as an officer, NYPD, to Nassau, what made you during that time? What divisions were you in? Precincts you were in, and during that time, what did you encounter that you saw that you were very passionate about as an officer that inspired you to become a president and lead the charge to what you're doing today? So
when I was a police officer very early on, I worked in the 70 precinct in Flatbush, Brooklyn, and I always wanted to be a cop. My dad was a police officer. He was a homicide detective, NYPD. So, like it says in the article about me, I used to dress up as a police officer, not just on Halloween, but daily.
Let me just be clear. Dressing up only as a police officer, right? You didn't dress up anything else,
police
right?
Officer. And while I started to work there as a police officer and walk the beat, I started to build relationships with the community. And there was this one particular boy at the time who was in elementary school going into junior high. And it was a rough time at that point. And the gangs were trying to grab some young guys and do initiations into the Crips and Bloods that was big at that time. And this one boy, I stopped him when he was going to commit a robbery for the gangs to get initiated. And I helped him. I did what I had to do to look after him. I kind of gave him a different way out, gave him a different guidance than what he was used to. And years later, this person came up to me, and I did not recognize him because he was no longer a young boy. And he was an NYPD police officer.
No way.
And he thanked me and said that would have never happened if I didn't give him a second chance.
Wow.
Absolutely.
That's an inspiring story.
Yes.
That's incredible. What did he he pursued the officer because of how you treated him during that time? Now he wanted to be that officer and give back to that community?
That, and also I gave him a different light of who police officers really are. I showed the human side. I think that's what we need to do more often, is show our community the human side. We're not just police officers. You know, we're your neighbor. We're the people in your community. We're your family. And it inspired him in a different way. And I honestly, that was one of my proudest moments in NYPD.
Yeah, that is tremendous. I mean, that's the mark you want to leave, because it's not only keeping your community safe, but you're influencing people. You're changing their lives in a way that forever changes their destiny. I think that's so fascinating to see as an officer, where just for you at that very moment, you thought to yourself, like, this is someone that's in need and is struggling and is truly just resorting to this crime for the wrong reasons, that he doesn't have to, and showing that there is another option, another alternative with that. So now as becoming president, can you talk about your priorities now leading that? Because that's obviously motivated you all the way. You just spoke about how your passion to represent the officers and bring that human side. What are your priorities as PBA president for Nassau County?
So that story I keep with myself, because honestly, what we went through the last few years has been devastating. After what happened years before, between COVID and George Floyd, we've been ripped apart. Our communities, the policing, our relationships, the trust has been ripped apart. And it's very sad to see, because it's not really the case. It's a false narrative that police officers do not care about their communities, regardless of race, religion, creed. And that story proves to me that as long as we're out there and we're making a difference, there's hope. There's hope that we can rebuild our relationships and be looked up to once again, like I once was in the community.
I think that's wonderful. And how does the Nassau PBA do that, though? How do we actually effectuate to have that influence to show officers the behind the scenes, the human element, but also fostering those relationships where people can trust law enforcement, do know to trust law enforcement. They feel secure and safe around law enforcement. They know that police officers are there strictly to protect them in any way possible, whether it may be from a crime occurring, but also even from being the one to create that crime or to commit that crime. So what actions can the PBA take as a whole, as an organization?
So I have a lot of responsibilities and goals, but one of the main things that I want to do, obviously, besides protecting my police officers, their safety first and foremost, and their financial needs for the future, I also want to do more with the community. And that's what we look forward to doing, and we're really just getting started. We do a back to school program in all different communities, and we pay for the backpacks, and we're there handing them out to the communities, to the children. That's a great opportunity to show our community and all of the kids that police officers are your friend. We're the good guys and good girls, So I really look forward to that program that we have. We also do during Christmas time and Hanukkah, we also do Maddie's Toys, where we bring these kids who are underprivileged, who live in shelters, and we pay for a shopping spree.
Oh, wow.
To make their holiday as special as everybody else.
That's amazing. All the gifts. How do you get people do you draw in support from businesses, from other just community members, from officers? Like, where does all that financial support come from?
As of right now, it's always just been from us.
Just you guys?
So, yes, it's just us.
Yeah, it's coming out of your pockets.
Absolutely, it is.
And that's what I mean. I mean, that's to speak volumes to the community out there and to the people, saying that the Nassau PBA is here to be a part of the community, not only just defend it.
Yes.
With that said, now, obviously you have a duty to your officers, you're saying, where making sure their safety is looked out for, so that whomever may be going after them, whether it be criminals or others, you want to always be at the forefront defending them and advocating for them. Also financially, making sure as they put their lives on the line, their health and safety on the line, they're going to be compensated correctly, as they should be, for all that sacrifice. What steps have you been taking as president on those ends?
Well, funny that you asked that. we just finally settled a contract.
Congratulations.
So thank you.
Okay.
Thank
How
you.
long has that been going on?
It was over 5 years without a contract. So
5 years.
Over 5 years.
Wow, that's incredible. And you
So
guys got that done.
Absolutely, and that was in my first year.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because now, how long you been a part of the PBA?
I've been
as
a PBA president for a little over a year.
Yeah, so a little over a year. So in that first year, what took 5, you got done in 1.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's bold, my man. That's what I'm talking about. That's that type of persistence and accuracy that people are looking for. Bravo to that.
Thank you.
That must have taken, what was that, excruciating back and forth, back and forth? I can only imagine that one, those conversations.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, we'll keep that off the record.
Yes.
Don't worry about that. We don't have to say. But fun is the right word, I
Yes.
guess. But now as far as, so within the contract, what's included for officers that that allows them going forward to feel more secure?
So what we looked is, we look at financially what's reasonable for what a police officer deserves. They can never, in my opinion, no one can ever pay a police officer what they really deserve. Okay, I don't. A lot of people think, oh, the police are overpaid. I don't think you can ever overpay a police officer, because at the end of the day, just think about it. Who's willing to put on a bulletproof vest, right? Put on a shield, a badge, and kiss their loved ones goodbye, and go protect the community who are strangers, people that they don't even know. They don't, and you know what? Some of them don't even like them, don't like us.
Yeah.
But that does not matter to us. We're still willing to risk our life every day and night that we go to work. So you can never pay a police officer enough money. A lot of people don't realize that while they're enjoying holidays with their family gatherings, we're missing our holidays with our families. We're the ones that are out there keeping the streets safe so you can enjoy your holiday. And we're not complaining about that. We sign up every day to do that job. But I just want people to realize that, because it gets lost in the politics. And we can never, honestly, I can never brag enough about what my brave men and women in blue do every day.
Do you think the politics of today has corrupted that the view of police officers, and also your ability to really create that harmony in the community?
Oh, absolutely. It's not just politics. I'm not just going to blame politicians. It's everything. It was the perfect storm a few years ago. And it was the media did not help, because it's like anything. What sells papers?
Yeah.
If you have a cat in a tree and the police officer saves the cat, right? Or if the same cat's there and the police officer shoots the cat down, which one is going to make the front page? It's just what it is what it is. But it was the perfect storm. It sold papers. It sold news. And a lot of people were just misinformed and misguided. And unfortunately, it really did rip us apart in our communities. But like I said, I always think back to that young man who I helped change his life. And I always have hope that we can get back to that.
So now going forward, you crushed it with the contract. You got, I guess, more money on top of it. What about how do you work it with the days off or vacation days? Is that also part of that negotiations as well?
Yes. So in the past, we had a contract that failed. A contract was reached, an agreement was reached 2 years ago, and it went to membership for ratification, and they voted it down. Okay. Now, a lot of people would say, well, cops are greedy. Why would they vote that down? It wasn't about the money. The money is not much different in this contract that I settled. The big difference was the concessions, the days off. Cops care about being home with their family. Like I said, they risk their lives. They leave their family on holidays, but we, at the very least, we need time with our families. We need to be able to, take your uniform off, your duty belt, and spend time with your family and remember your human side. Enjoy life. Enjoy the things that everybody else does. So I looked at what was important to police officers, not just money. We all know that. Like I said, we can never get paid enough. But it was time off, vacation. It was flexibility, being able to make some school events for your kids, being able to take off last minute, sick days, things like that. And I looked at quality of life, and that's what I paid attention to in this contract, and that's really what I believe. And it was also the communication. I was able to get out there and basically communicate directly with my members.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. I mean, communication's key in every facet, and talking to your members and building on understanding them and their home life and their relationships. And that leads me to something that I thought was very unique about your priorities as president too, and what I took a real liking to specifically was also your focus as president of Nassau PBA was also your focus on helping the mental health side of things for your officers. What inspired you to pursue that? Did you have personal experiences yourself? Why go down that route? Can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. So a little over 10 years ago, I came between crossroads in my personal life and on the job. And I ended up getting in trouble on the job, just like cops do every day, right? There's a lot of times when we get disciplined, and sometimes it's warranted, and other times it is not, So I got caught up in politics and discipline for something that I had nothing to do with. The story doesn't really matter too much. What matters is that this is what cops go through on a daily basis, okay? I was getting in trouble at work, and what ends up happening is when you get in trouble, they transfer you, which I have had numerous conversations with upper brass, commissioners, politicians, and I disagree with that mentality and that procedure, and I'll tell you why. So you're getting in trouble at work. First thing they do is they pull you off the street and they do a proper investigation. We understand that. We know it's the nature of the beast. It's part of the game that we chose to this profession. While that was going on, they transfer you. So now you get transferred to another location where you're not comfortable. You don't know your coworkers who become your family. Mm-hmm. And also your supervisors don't know you, which is very important, and I'll tell you why. They don't know your baseline. They don't know if you're a happy-go-lucky person, if you're someone that jokes around a lot, if you show up late to work, if that's normal behavior. So now when you start struggling personally, they don't know the difference. So that's why I feel that's the wrong move to make. I think they should keep you where you're comfortable, where people know you, and have sets of eyes on you, making sure that everything's okay until your investigation's over and until you get that, if you do need help, until you're able to get the help you need. So my situation, it just so happened that during the same time that I was in trouble at work, and when your job turns on you and the community turns on you, you feel like, you're risking your life for these people, and they're pointing you out they're treating you worse than they treat prisoners or criminals. And that's how I felt at that time. And I also have a personal life. This is something that people forget. This goes back to the human side of us. Mm-hmm. I have a personal life. I have a lot of stress at work. We all have stress at work as humans. You at home, you have mortgages. You might have sick children, God forbid, sick parents, whatever it may be. Financial issues. Well, it just so happens that at this very same time that I was going through this at work professionally, my home life was crumbling. And I ended up going through a divorce, and I lost a family business went under, because that was during the time when the market crashed in 2009, and we just got caught up in that. So I had financial problems, home life problems. I ended up losing my house. Everything happened at the same time. It was a perfect storm. Right. And at this time, the supervisor did not know me. They didn't know what I was struggling with. I turned to alcohol, and I started drinking every single day. And I drank myself into being an alcoholic. Wow. And nobody knew. That's the key. Nobody knew to offer me help. I was never offered help once. And I'm not knocking the past. I'm not knocking past supervisors or the way they did things. I wanted to make change so no one else has to go through this again. Right. Okay, so fast forward, I ended up getting the help I needed eventually. It took a lot. I was in depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts. You name it, I went through it.
And all while the investigation was still pending?
Yes.
Throughout?
Yes. I didn't know. We were in the newspaper. I didn't know if I was losing my job. Nobody was talking to me. You get treated like, this is the other thing. We're trained in saving lives. We risk our lives for each other, police officers. If somebody's calling for help, they'll do anything you have to do to get there. Yeah. Right? But we don't know what to do to help someone when they're struggling mentally and personally. and it's unfortunate because it's the old school mentality. It's the stigma, and that's my slogan now: is break the stigma. It's not just police officers. This is everywhere. It's our culture. We need to break the stigma in mental health. We need people to be able to freely get help and talk about it.
Yeah.
And that's where I realized we had a big void in the police department, just like they do in the military. And that's why you see crazy numbers of suicide. You know, I was just reading again today. I give presentations on this, and I was just reading again today to check the numbers, and it's out of control. Police officers, statistics today show police officers have 3 times more of a chance of dying by suicide than they do by getting killed by a bad guy or a bad girl on the street.
Wow.
I mean, that is just crazy when you think about it.
That's insane.
And we need to do better. As a community, as a police department, as a state, we need to do better. And that's what I'm trying to do. So I went and got help. I went to rehab, inpatient rehab for alcohol. And this past May 15th marked 10 years of sobriety.
Wow. God bless you, buddy. Congratulations with that.
Thank you.
That's amazing. Did you have, you had those issues at home that you were fighting, those demons, and how did you, what pushed you and what motivated you to seek that help? Was it on your own? Did you have someone that did come to persuade you, to push you? How did you come to that point of seeking help?
So I actually was forced by the job eventually, and the PBA back then. You know, so I actually was forced by the PBA president back then to get help, and I'm grateful for that. They scooped me up and they said, "You're going away." They drove me to upstate to this inpatient rehab, dropped me off, and said, "See you in 30 days."
Yeah.
So that's really what got the ball rolling.
And that was the moment where you're just like, "I gotta get it together."
Yes, yes. And I did everything that I possibly could to get better. I worked the program. I did outpatient rehab for 9 months.
Wow.
And then it started to change for me. And I realized I'm getting healthy. And who is there for our other police officers? I'm not the only one struggling.
Right.
I'm just the only one that's talking about it.
Yep.
So I went and got trained. I started doing training for peer support. I started doing training for suicide prevention, suicide intervention. I'm trained and certified to work the hotlines, the suicide hotlines. And the more I got trained, I started pushing. I ran for PBA delegate at the time in the PBA.
Wow.
And I started pushing the PBA. I helped them. We have a bunch of committees, just like government has in politics. And one of the committees was members' welfare. And I always asked, what does members' welfare actually do?
Yeah.
And no one really had an answer. So I said, well, I have an idea what we actually could do with this. And I didn't know if they thought I was crazy at the time, because you got to remember, this is real. The stigma is real. The old school mentality,
yeah.
The tough guy mentality. We're superheroes. You got to suck it up.
Right.
You can't show weakness. So I forced them. I pushed it. I didn't stop. I didn't care what anybody thought about me, because I knew that this would help in the long run. And I pushed everybody to get trained.
You must have faced so much adversity in that, though, right? Because you still had that stigma. So by bringing awareness, were there other officers that were saying this does make us look weak, this does harm our image, or what was the response in the backlash?
So I didn't really pay attention too much. I heard the comments, why do we have to go through this training and all of that. But what really made a difference was I ended up losing a friend, someone who I worked with close, a police officer. He died by suicide after all of this.
Wow.
And I was his union rep. I was his friend. I worked with him 3 out of 5 nights a week. We were in the same fantasy football league together.
Wow.
And I realized, wow, I'm supposed to be the person who's educated in this, trained in this, and I didn't see it coming. And then I realized, why I didn't see it coming? Because it makes sense. We wear masks. Police officers wear masks. We're trained to wear masks. Think about it. You're trained to make split-second decisions that are life and death on the spot. And you're also trained to do things that no one else can do. You're trained to give death notifications to a parent. The worst thing you could possibly do is tell someone that their child just died. And we're expected to get back out there a half hour later and do whatever else the next
Just
call
get back
is.
to the job,
Get
right.
back out there.
Yep.
That's a mask that we're trained to wear, and we're very good at it. It makes us great and professional at what we do. Unfortunately, we are also great at wearing a mask personally, and nobody knows when the person next to them is struggling. So I realized I had to do more, and that's when I decided I made a tough decision of leaving the PBA, and I went to join the Employee Assistance Office, and I went back to school to Malloy College, and I became a certified counselor.
Wow, that must have been like a complete, like that shows you. I mean, to have that that catalyst for you, someone so close to you, and how long after did your friend pass from you seeking treatment and recovery and all? Was this years later, 2, 3 years, 4 years?
It was probably a year and a half.
A year and a half later. So I mean, even that, as you're overcoming your own past, now just to have that so close to you, that must have been truly heartbreaking. And what a motivation that was for you to just switch gears.
I bleed blue for police officers, but mental health is my passion. It's what keeps me going. It's what got me here. To be honest with you, my story is all built around mental health. I never was a public speaker. Years back, I never would be on this podcast with you. I never would even speak in front of a classroom. I didn't want to read in front of the classroom. But what forced me was when I went to employee assistance, I realized that the only way that this is going to really work is if I get out there and put together a presentation and speak to my members, to the cops, to the job, to the department, and tell them my story. And that would gain trust, and that would allow them to lower their guard, since I am, and come get help. So I'll never forget, I put together a presentation. I had no idea what I was doing. My partner helped me with a PowerPoint. And here's the interesting thing also. My partner at the time in employee assistance, she was a police officer also. We all were there. It was a very unique office. Yeah. One of the best offices around is the Nassau County Police Department Employee Assistance Office, because they're all police officers and certified counselors. So like they say, it takes one to know one, and it's built in trust. The interesting thing was she helped me. I went there as a client.
Oh, wow.
And she helped save my life. And then she trained me. You know, she called me and asked me to join her team. And I couldn't believe that. I was blown away that she would ask me, after knowing all my skeletons in my closet, she would ask me, because I thought I was crazy. I'm like, I'm crazy. What do you mean you want me to join here? And she taught me to be a great counselor. She's one of the best that I've ever been around. And then they helped me do a PowerPoint. And I'll never forget the first presentation. I spoke to the job, and I have a commissioner, a great commissioner, Patrick Ryder, who bought into this. And he said to me, he goes, listen, I don't know what all of this voodoo is that you do, but if it could help my cops, I'm with you.
Yeah.
And he allowed me to give my presentation. They didn't even know what I was going to say, and they gave me the mic for an hour to speak to the whole entire job. So the first day, I didn't know who was going to be in the crowd. It's people, coworkers.
How many people are in this audience right now?
It was about 200 every time.
Wow.
And I had to do it for 2 months, every day.
Every single day?
Every single day. Wow. So the first day, I'll never forget, I was so nervous that I went into the bathroom and I actually was vomiting. I was shaking. I was vomiting. I was so nervous. And once I went there and started telling my truth, and I realized, because I know most police officers that go to training, they're not really paying attention. It's hard to keep a police officer in a room for hours and pay attention like you're in school. That's not easy to do with what we're up against. We're always used to adrenaline.
Yeah,
flowing,
of course.
Got
to be on every second.
And it only took a couple of minutes, and I can just tell a switch went off, and I had everyone's attention. You could hear a pin drop, and I can almost see right through them, and I can see them looking at me, because I knew that something that I said, not everything, but something that I said that they could relate to.
Yeah.
And that's when it was so much, I did it. And listen, I didn't know if they were going to boo me. I didn't know if they were going to throw stuff at me. I didn't know if they were going to get up and walk out.
Throwing tomatoes at you.
It was crazy feeling. And I got a standing ovation.
Wow.
And I had a hard time holding back tears, because some of them were coming up to me and hugging me, and they were crying themselves. And I'm talking about high-ranking supervisors.
Yeah.
Because they felt, they were sorry that they didn't catch what I was going through and they weren't able to help me. And I said, it's not about that. This isn't to point fingers. This isn't to blame anyone. This is so we can all do better in the future.
Grow.
We can grow. And that's why my story took on a life of its own. I started doing my presentation around the state. I helped some nonprofits. I helped start a nonprofit called NILEAP, New York Law Enforcement Assistance Program. We do a seminar throughout New York State. And then I started traveling and telling my story to other police departments in other states.
Wow. How many years were you doing this for? Are you still doing this?
So I did this for 5 years, and I'm not able to. I would like to get back to it eventually, but obviously I had a lot to do my first year in office.
Yeah, naturally. That's what I was saying. As president, I'm like, I can't imagine you still doing traveling and all, because now your focus is strictly on the members. But how can you? Because that's tremendous with NILEAP and speaking to other departments, and for them. Would you see any harmony among the different departments now thereafter, after having your speeches and your conversations? What was the response with that? And then with NILEAP, how that has progressed? What's been the evolution there?
I'm excited to say it's taken off. Mental health is a huge topic now. It's because in my opinion, it's not political. Just like police should not be political. I always say it's police, not politics.
Yeah.
We should have never been in the middle of politics, and mental health should never be in the way of politics. So we're coming a long way. There's still a lot more work to do across the state and federally, but it's gaining traction. There's another great organization, my friends, they started a few years ago that I know from high school, Beyond the Badge, New York, and they're doing phenomenal events. Last week, they just did an event last Saturday with Seaford Little League. And what they did was, it was almost like an anti-bullying campaign in the schools. What they did was they had the Little League, and this is very bold because everyone knows suicide is the elephant in the room. Yep. And we need to hit it head on. And that's exactly what I do, and that's what they're doing. They had the Little League play a game, a championship game that they sponsored. We helped co-sponsor it. And they had each child that was playing the field wear a baseball jersey with a police officer who died by suicide's name on their back. Wow. I mean, that is groundbreaking. People don't realize that is groundbreaking. I started to cry because I wasn't able to attend because I had family obligations. I still do have a family life that I have 2 young kids and myself, so I do have to balance that out. But what they're doing is amazing. Peer support is taken off across the state, and I'm trying to work with local and state politicians on some mental health bills for first responders, not just police officers, all first responders and military.
Specifically on that peer-to-peer support or beyond that? It's
beyond that, but right now I'm testing the waters with peer support. I'm trying right now. We have a bill that's co-sponsored. Hopefully, it didn't make it this session. I'm hoping next session it gains some traction. There's no monetary value to it, so it's just purely
What's it about?
Support. So what it does is two things. It gives peer support. So if you have an organized peer support system team with a police department across New York State, let's just use Nassau County as an example, those peer support officers would have confidentiality just strictly when they're called out for like a critical incident. So just to give you what a critical incident could be, let's say a car accident with multi-fatals. Children. It's one of the worst scenes that a police officer could ever walk up to.
I can't imagine.
And it's trauma.
Yeah. It
really is. And peer support needs to get called out for that. What we do is we do almost like a debriefing where everyone is sitting there. It's not counseling. It's nothing like that. It's just basically to try to normalize the way that you might be feeling. Okay? You can never normalize the event.
Right.
Because there's nothing normal about it.
It's abnormal.
Absolutely. There's nothing normal about that. And people have to remember that just because we're police officers and we're willing to do this, we're human and we have the same brain. It's not normal to see what we see.
Yeah.
So peer support helps you realize before you go home that maybe the senior officer shares their thoughts on how they're feeling after that. And maybe it makes you feel better You know, like you're not going home because after a critical incident, everybody responds differently, reacts differently. You might have trouble sleeping. You might not want to eat. You might eat too much. So it's more of an education. They just tell them all this stuff of what you might be going through, and they ask about the situation a little bit.
Yeah, it's fostering the team's mentality still, because as you just said, as officers, where at a moment's notice, if someone's saying officer in need, you guys are responding to that like that.
Yes.
But at the same time, now when you have this mental situation occur, it's now creating that, hey, are you feeling like what I'm feeling? Like I'm rattled right now. I'm not sleeping well. I'm eating too much, or maybe I'm taking a shot extra of alcohol, whatever it may be. Like, this is hitting me. What about with you? And for some, it may feel more, I guess, alleviating or less stressful for them by knowing, like, oh, my partner feels the same way, or my partner's doing the same thing. It's like, yeah, we gotta, bounce off of each other and say that we could work through this.
Yes, it shows that you're not alone.
Yeah.
And one of the sayings out there is, it's okay to not be okay.
Right.
And that's what people have to realize. I'm living proof. Whenever a cop gets in trouble, or maybe personally they have a substance abuse issue or PTSD, which is out there, obviously.
Naturally, yeah.
It shows that we're not broken forever, and we deserve a second chance. I'm living proof.
Yeah.
Everything I went through, and not only did I recover, get back to patrol as a police officer, I then became a union rep. I became a counselor, and now, after I told my story to all my members, talk about breaking the stigma.
Yeah.
Not only did they give me a standing ovation, they voted for me to be their leader.
That means the world.
It's every day I still can't believe it.
Yeah.
I really can't. I'm so humbled every day.
It shows you how they've entrusted their faith in you to lead the charge as someone that rebuilt himself and used himself as a model. It shows how now you want to lead the charge for the department and for the PBA to say, now I'm going to make sure we lead the charge together, where we always look out for each other in every facet, whether it be mental health or whether it be through the PBA needs. So I mean, that's laudable, my friend, and that's something that kudos to you and what you're doing. As far as now, we have this peer-to-peer advocacy. The next steps beyond that, where do you want to see your priorities go? Where do you want to see your role in mental health as PBA president evolve?
So obviously everything is financial, so we need more money dedicated to mental health.
Okay.
And law enforcement and the community. We're all the same. We're
Yep.
all human. So we need more money. We can never have enough money for mental health. We need training. That's another big thing that I settled in the contract. I put in there that we have to have training, and I want to see mental health training. Because unfortunately, and I'm not pointing fingers, but before this last contract, and before I gave my presentation, police officers went 20, 30 years in their career and never had mental health training.
Right.
I mean, that's just unreal.
And that mental health training is how to respond to a situation or a fellow officer, or both.
It's both.
See, I
It's
think
both.
it's great.
It's both, because we're no different than the same way you would handle someone on the street that has mental illness. If you need to recognize that in maybe yourself or your partner and do something about it. And I'm not saying that we don't care. We care more than anybody, because if we didn't care, we wouldn't do what we do. Believe me, there's so much risk involved. There's so much sacrifice, and you don't do it for a pat on the back, because most of the time we are the villains out there. It's just sells papers and media.
Yep.
So you just need to educate cops on what to look for, and more importantly, it's not just about asking someone, are you okay? You need to know what to say. Because if I ask you, are you thinking about killing yourself? That's very hard to say to somebody.
Yeah.
But you know why people don't say it? Because they don't know what to do if you say yes. And that's what we need to help with. We need to change that, because so many people just need someone to show they care. There's a couple of interviews, fascinating interviews. There's this man who jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge and he survived. And he's all over YouTube. And if you watch his interview and they ask him, he says, I went from my house on the bus and walked here. I don't remember how I got here. And all I wanted was one person to show that they cared and talk me out of it. And nobody talked to him. Nobody did. And then they asked him, what was your biggest regret? He said, as soon as I jumped, I regretted it.
See? Because he never really wanted that.
No, not at all.
He just wanted the help.
Absolutely. And we have to change the stigma with suicide. It's not selfish. I know it's so easy to say, oh, that's the easy way out. Believe me, I'm telling you, people do not, they're not taking the easy way out. They don't see another way out. And that's what we have to show them, that they're not alone and it's okay. We need to normalize getting help. The same way, like if you're my partner and you got hurt on the road, you broke your arm, God forbid, and you go for surgery, you go for physical therapy, right?
Yep.
Now you're off patrol for a certain amount of time,
yep.
and you're working inside answering the phone, right? We come in, and everybody's asking you, how you doing? You know, do you need anything? Do you need help at home? Your kids, do you need help doing stuff? We need to treat mental health the same way. Instead, when we know somebody is jammed up or whatever you want to call it, going through a tough time, we treat them like they have the plague, and we avoid. And that's where we have to change. And it's not going to help. We need to do it from the bottom up and from the top down. And what I mean by that is what we're doing. I'm out there pushing my cops to ask each other if they're okay.
Yeah.
But we also need departments and municipalities to buy in. They have to stop treating mental illness, mental health situations with discipline. And that's what's still going on because that's how it's always been done. And that's one thing that you ask anybody in my office, I love change when it's for the better. I'm not afraid of change. And they'll tell you the worst thing you can say to Tommy when I ask you, why is it this way? And they say, well, that's the way it's always been done.
Oof.
I don't like that.
I don't like that.
Nope. You have to be willing to progress and move forward.
That's right. I think it's in the face of darkness, one must always remember you can just turn on the light. And I think that's a blessing. That's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to show people all throughout the department, throughout the communities, there is a light, and we can do it together. And I got to say, buddy, this has been absolutely amazing to have you on. You've been incredible. I look forward to seeing your growth. I look forward to seeing what you have to provide for your membership in the forthcoming years. And I'm sure re-election will be smooth sailing for you because you've been doing a great job, my friend. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much. This really is a great honor. I was looking forward to this.
Me
Thank
too,
you
buddy.
so much.
Thank you.